All right. Well, today we'd like to welcome Pete Wall and Marcelina Gray from Yellow Bike to the show.
Howdy.
Yeah, Yellow Bike is a volunteer-powered nonprofit that refurbishes donated bikes to provide affordable transportation and education for the community. And y'all just celebrated your 29th year of operation, I think this past weekend. Went to the party. It was wonderful to see the wide range of people in the community and culture that y'all have built over those 29 years. So I'm super excited to have you on the show and learn a little bit more about what y'all are doing over there.
Thanks for inviting us.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, can y'all give us a general description of the work that Yellow Bike does and kind of a little bit of the history behind the organization?
Yeah, we are a bicycle education and recycling facility located in East Austin. And we started off 29 years ago with the goal of getting more people in Austin to ride bikes. And to do that, we accept bike donations from people who don't want them anymore. And we use our volunteers and staff to refurbish the bikes. The volunteers are learning bike mechanics while they're doing the work, and the staff are helping to guide the whole process. And once the bikes are refurbished, we redistribute them. Some of them we sell, some of them we give away to adults through other nonprofit organizations, and some of them we give away to schools and other groups that work with children.
Nice. And there's a pretty high demand from that, from what I'm hearing.
The demand has not yet been met. Yeah. I think currently our backlog of bike requests for the free bikes is about 150. And right now, the bikes that we have for sale are, there's a lot of gaps in the sale rack. So the demand for bikes in Austin is pretty steady and pretty solid.
So y'all are doing both. You're donating bikes and selling bikes. How does that work as far as like a business model? And can you elaborate a little bit on like the programs that exist within Yellow Bike? Because as far as I know, there are quite a few.
There are quite a few, and I'm bound to forget at least one or two of them in this process. But let me start with the sale bikes, because some people ask us like, well, you're a nonprofit. What are you doing selling bikes? The number one reason why we decided to sell bikes is because we discovered through our efforts that not everyone in Austin wants to be a bike mechanic. Our original goal was just to teach people bike mechanics and get them to build their own bikes and, feel proud of their accomplishment and take that bike out onto the street. But lots and lots of people come through our doors and they're not interested or able or willing to learn how to work on bikes. And that's totally fine. Not everybody
It's hard.
Not everybody's born to be a
Yeah.
bike mechanic. Not everybody has the mechanical inclination. Not everybody has the time to devote to it, because it's a mechanical skill like any other, and it takes a lot of hours to actually get good at it. It's like if you needed a car and you wanted to build your own car, like who has the ability to
But you're
do that?
not a bike repair place. People don't bring their bikes in to get them repaired.
It's
Is that-
true. That's the main thing that we don't do. We don't offer bike repair service. We do want to empower everybody who comes in to learn the skills, but we decided to sell bikes because not everybody wants to. Everybody wants a bike, but not everybody has the ability to make one. And so in addition to the sales program, we have what's called the Earn a Bike program, where people who need a bike but can't afford one can come in and devote some time. If you put in 18 hours of volunteer work, that gives you the right to pick one of our used bikes that hasn't been fixed up yet and fix it up for yourself. And then we have our outgoing donation programs, where we work with other nonprofits that help people with whether it's people who are unhoused, people who are recently housed and seeking work, people who are asylum seekers or refugees, people recovering from addiction, people who just moved here and are experiencing poverty, all kinds of things that affect people's ability to live their lives. And getting a bike can be a really big game changer for people. And so we figured out that asking people if they needed a bike was simple, because everybody does. And so figuring out who deserves a bike in order not to go through the vetting process of like, show us your pay stubs or lack thereof, or prove that you're in need. We just decided to work with other existing nonprofits around the city that are already doing this work. And so we can kind of augment the work that they do. And to do that, we have a form on the website that any caseworker or social worker can fill out and get a free bike for their client. And we used to do it where it was first come, first served, and the backlog got to be like over 100 bikes. And by the time we would get one ready for a person, sometimes we would call the agency and say, hey, the bike is ready. And sometimes we would hear like, oh, that caseworker's not with us anymore, or we lost track of that client. So now what we do it monthly. We open up the form, people fill it out to the point where we're overwhelmed with the requests, and then we close the form and we build all of those bikes that month and get them out to people. So the wait time is only 2 or 3 weeks now.
How long did it take y'all to figure out that sequence of events?
Let's see, about 29 years.
I've noticed that going in there. I've done the Build a Bike program, or Earn a Bike. How does that go again?
It's Earn a Bike.
Earn a Bike? Okay, so the Earn a Bike program. Every time that I've gone in there to volunteer, or we've been shooting with the Austin Bicycle Meals lately and going through there, each time that I go in, you can see like iterations of evolutions happening and a refinement. So that's obviously been happening for 29 years, but does it feel like you are making some significant strides with changes like that over the past few years, or what's been going on recently?
Absolutely, yeah. We have been making some strides. And when we started off, the organization was called the Yellow Bike Project, and the goal was to take bikes that people didn't want and paint them bright yellow and put them on the streets with a sticker that said free to ride but not to keep.
Why yellow?
Well, we picked yellow because one of our founders had a friend who worked at TxDOT, and that person had unlimited access to the yellow paint they used to put stripes on the roads. And so they were trying to get rid of 5-gallon buckets of yellow paint, and so it was a really useful resource for us at the time.
And determined the name apparently as well.
Yes,
That's awesome.
exactly.
So are bikes actually being painted yellow anymore?
No, we stopped painting bikes yellow in 2013 when the city of Austin created what's now the Cap Metro bike share system. We kind of declared victory and acknowledged that our idea of public bikes had gotten mainstream, and now the city was doing it. Admittedly, the ones that we made were free for everybody, but at the same time, they didn't get maintained at all, and so they all just fell to pieces and disappeared. Whereas the city version, it does cost money to use, but because of that, there's maintenance and they remain available to the public. So once the idea of public bikes was accepted, we also acknowledged that the yellow bikes that we were making weren't a successful program. It was idealistic and interesting, but it didn't actually work for people who need transportation. So that's when we started really focusing on giving bikes directly to people who need them. And instead of saying, leave this bike out for the public to use, we also provide a lock and a light and a helmet so that they can actually have a bike of their own and use it. So the bikes that we give away used to be really flashy and really visible and, got us a lot of notice in the community. And now the bikes we give away are not that. But I would argue that they're more impactful.
They're beautiful.
Than the ones
It's a great
before.
exposure campaign.
It was.
Yeah.
The marketing campaign did its job, and now we're established.
Yeah, it's certainly, people love the concept of the yellow bikes, and it brought a lot of volunteers to us.
I don't know if this is the moment to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I want to hear what it was like in the very, very beginning. And like, Pete, were you there for the very beginning of Yellow Bike?
I was there for parts of the beginning. So the Yellow Bike Project started at this other nonprofit that existed it still exists in Boston, but it doesn't exist in Austin anymore. It's called Bikes Not Bombs. And that organization started in the early 1980s as a response to the proxy war in Nicaragua that the Reagan administration was administering. And the Nicaraguan government had a program where they would pay wages to disabled veterans to run bike shops in villages. And this organization started in Boston and spread throughout the country in the 80s to gather bikes up and put them in shipping containers and send them to Nicaragua to get people there on bikes. And so when I came across Bikes Not Bombs in Austin, it was because I needed a bike and I wanted to learn bike mechanic skills. And I found these people who were working on bikes in this garage behind a house in Hyde Park. And historically, they had been shipping bikes to Nicaragua, but in the early 90s, this is some real deep information.
I like the history, yeah.
In the early 90s, there was an election in Nicaragua, and the Sandinista government was voted out and a pro-America government was voted in. And so the proxy award ended, but at the same time, the connections to the village bike shops also ended. So the Austin version of Bikes Not Bombs was just stacking up bikes. They had like a monthly sale at Wheatsville of used bikes, but they didn't really have a powerful mission. And so a bunch of the volunteers at that location of Bikes Not Bombs got to talking, and we were inspired by this idea that came out of the Netherlands. In the 1960s, there was a radical student organization called the Provo's that elected a city council member to the Amsterdam City Council, and that person had the idea of public bikes, and they got the Amsterdam government to spend a bunch of money on 20,000 identical white bicycles
Wow.
that they just put on the streets for everyone to use. We didn't actually, or I should say I didn't do the research to follow up on what that program actually did, because that program also was a failure. All of those bikes filtered out into the rest of
It
Europe
was
and
a
disappeared.
learning experience.
Exactly. But at the time we were like, this is a cool idea, and we were inspired, and we were biking around the city and seeing all these bikes, particularly in West Campus, that were just put on the curb during bulky pickup day. And we were thinking, it's such a shame that people are actually throwing bikes away when Austin, everybody needs a bike. The traffic congestion in Austin has been like the number one topic in every political election that we've had since I noticed moving in here in 1995. And it's still a real problem. And we thought, if we just get people to ride bikes, we could help solve this problem. And so this guy, Dave Baker, had a friend at TxDOT, and he was like, well, I know I can get some yellow paint. So let's fix up these bikes. We'll paint them yellow, and we'll do like releases, like they were like releasing endangered species back into the habitat. And so we painted a bunch of bikes, and we put them out in different places and made a splash, and it got going from there.
Awesome. And so, Marcelina, when did you come on board with Yellow Bike? Pete, you've been there for almost 29 years?
Almost the whole time,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing.
I've been in and out.
Yeah. So my first time at Yellow Bike was in 2019, in August or September. I moved to Austin in 2019 from Poland. And this is something that I feel like I can relate to the people from our Get a Free Bike or Earn a Bike program, because these are the people also from immigrant communities. And when you move to a new city, especially from a different country, the first thing that you notice is that you need access to transportation to get to the places that you need to get to search
Austin's
for a
public
job.
transportation is not necessarily something to be known for. And
Still improving, but moving from Europe, where everyone uses public transportation, regardless of the income status, background, etc. So that was like one of the first cultural shocks for me. That I have to figure this out. And so I Googled free bicycles Austin, and I was told that people sometimes put free bicycles on Craigslist when people move out. And so instead of that, I found this very vintage looking website. And there it was, the Earn a Bike program. And I read about it, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. Not only I will get a free bike, but also I will learn bike mechanics. And growing up, I never really held any tools in hands. So I thought, this is like a great challenge, and I'm up for it.
Did you ride a bike growing up?
Yeah, actually, my first bike. So in Poland, usually you receive, like the majority of people are Catholics, or there is an imposed Catholic culture on you when you grow up. So I participated in that imposed Catholic tradition of the First Communion. And so one of the things you usually get, at least when I was growing up, would be either a watch or a bicycle. And so I received a bicycle for my first communion that was stolen on the first day.
Oh, no.
So that was a very traumatic bicycle experience. And then, so for many years, I didn't have a bicycle. And then when I went to college, my grandma got me another bicycle. The whole family chipped in. I was studying in Krakow, so I had like a very vintage bike then moving around Krakow. And yeah, so I moved to Warsaw, and like my job was like a walking distance, and then again using transportation. So like bicycles were never like part of my culture or identity or how I move, or I was never really interested in bike mechanics. And so then I moved to Austin in 2019 and starting new life. And I discovered this program because I needed a bicycle as a transportation, and I would do. These are the requirements. You have to come and volunteer. I think there were more hours required in 2019. And so when I got there, I think that was like one of the workshops of like WTF, which stands for Women Trans Femme, and which I also like that environment, that I came to a space that was run by Women Trans Femme identifying volunteers mechanics, and that was also first time I saw kind of like, oh, like women can be bike mechanics too. That is so cool. This is not like, Poland is kind of like a traditional country, conservative. So there isn't like that idea that, women or like non-male bike mechanics. So that was like another thing that I really liked. So I started as a volunteer, and then I was like doing different gig jobs, including sound editing. And then after doing the Earn a Bike program, I was so proud that I completed it, even though I hated it at the beginning, because I was like, what's this, using tools? This is dumb. Like, I don't understand anything. My brain doesn't work like that. But I'm not a quitter. So I really wanted the bike. And I think I can really relate to what what Pete said earlier on, that it's great. The idea in theory is great to like empower people through bike mechanics, and like they get a bike and they learn, but really not everyone wants to learn bike mechanics. And actually the people, if you're in a position of like struggling with money, struggling between jobs, and even like getting to yellow bike, it's a kind of catch-22 of the people we serve, really, because you need access to transportation to get to yellow bike, to get access to transportation, and like some of the people actually, that the most people that would benefit from this free bicycle, they often work like 2 or 3 jobs, and like for them to commit those 18 hours of volunteering time, that's a lot. And even like getting to yellow bike, sometimes they have to switch between different buses. And so I can very much understand the at least some of the needs of the people who are in need of bicycle, because I went through that, and I know firsthand like what a great effort it was for me to get on a bus that took about like 45-50 minutes to get to yellow bike, and then spend that additional time there, and then get back on the bus. And so eventually going back to my experience of the Earn a Bike program, I was so proud. And because of being in the program, Hill, who was the previous owner of the bicycle sport shop, I met him on some occasion, and I told him like, hey, I just graduated from the Earn a Bike program. Do you think I really want to learn more bike mechanics? At that point, I did want to learn more.
So
Yeah, because actually I started liking it. I thought at the beginning I didn't, but then I started liking it, and I felt like maybe
Stockholm
I can
syndrome
like
slowly sets in if you're in there long
exactly,
enough.
like maybe I can actually do it. I can become a bike mechanic. I've never thought about it, and so I met Hill. That we were like close to Hill, right? The owner of the bicycle sport shop. So he offered me a job, on like a training bicycle position, bike mechanic position, and it was all because of Yellow Bike, because that initial earn a bike hours led me to earning my first bike, and then getting my first bike mechanic job at the bicycle sport shop. And I had my part-time training bike mechanic job for like a few weeks, and that was in 2019, in February 2019, and then in March 2019 we all went on the pandemic mode, and so my job at the bicycle sport shop was pending, and then one thing led to another, and then I applied at Yellow Bike for a position, and yeah, that's long story short how I ended
that's
up
an
at Yellow.
empowering story. It's interesting to hear from both of y'all as far as like how stepping into that space, which I heard y'all talking earlier that it's considered a third space, which is much needed in the city, but that empowering journey then leads to other things, but almost comes full circle back to helping and working within the community that helped you kind of get on your feet when you got to Austin. That's I would imagine that happens a lot in that space, and y'all are probably witnessing quite a bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the impact of Yellow Bike is more than many people even realize. There are a lot of bike mechanic spaces in Austin that exist that actually came from Yellow Bike. The bike shop in our neighborhood, Eastside Pedal Pushers, the owner of the shop is actually a former Yellow Bike volunteer.
Really? That's a great shop.
Yeah, the Gisalo director and creator, Christopher, he used to be a Yellow Bike volunteer. So there's so many people from the community that are still part of the cycling community here in Austin, that they kept just carrying the bicycle torch
Yeah.
around Austin, and created like completely new organizations or bike shops. They originally were connected to Yellow Bike.
Shout out to Gisalo.
Yeah, shout out to our homies.
Which is another co-op nonprofit partner. So yay.
Yay.
So in getting back to that, so obviously Yellow Bike is basically an institution at this point in time from the sounds of it. You've gone through your cycles and have institutionalized yourselves within the community. Being a third space, I heard you mention the WTF, the Women's Trans Femme program. I've noticed that in going in there is that Yellow Bike has such a unique culture, and that culture feels like core Austin. And now hearing you talk about that is a lot of core Austin programs that are around have kind of come from within Yellow Bike. So it seems like an incubator within the bicycle community, providing transportation, doing all that. Can you tell us a little bit about the culture at Yellow Bike and why that works so well in this space, about how welcoming it is? It's unique. If someone's never been in there, I highly advise going in. But when you step foot in there, you're like, everything's okay. Like it's just a very welcoming vibe, and especially around something as challenging as being a bike mechanic, to be able to empower people in that. It's truly a special place. So how did that come to be, and tell us a little bit about the culture?
I think it all goes back to the origins of it. Like the first people who set up Yellow Bike did it as an anarchist collective, with mutual aid being one of the foundational ideas behind it, that people can get the things that they need to succeed in life by being part of a community and helping each other. And another big part of the idea was that bike mechanics don't have to be a mysterious thing for people. Like,
I mean, are they?
well, there's some aspects of it that can be quite mysterious. I don't know. A couple of days ago, I was working on a bike for quite some time, and I could not figure out what was going on with it. But more to the point, the bicycle industry is really not very welcoming in general, which is a shame. And one of the reasons Yellow Bike exists is to work to change that.
Why do you
And
think that is?
what I mean is that one of the foundations of it is racing. And racing is really exclusive and competitive and male dominated and, aggressive. People succeed. And so the bicycle industry has always been pulled in a direction by the racing culture and
Makes sense.
by the racing needs. So a lot of people, when they get into bikes, they think, oh, I need to be like the racers. I need to have fancy bike. I need to have a bike that's made for going fast on the road.
Fancy clothes.
Fancy clothes, yeah, expensive stuff. And there's also a competitive element to it. And, like when it comes to the mechanic part of it, a lot of the mechanics like to mystify it. They will take the bike into the back of the shop and leave the customer in the dark about what's happening. And a lot of the racers will be like, oh, I have my mechanic. It's the only person I trust. And this weird, like, exclusive relationship that happens sometimes. And of course, I'm not saying that's universal, but that's a trend in the industry for sure. And one of the things that we wanted to do at Yellow Bike is to demystify it and make it more of the people kind of process. Because bikes are relatively simple. It's true you do need specific tools, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to create this community shop where we can collectively organize to bring all the tools into one place, kind of like a tool library, where people can access them freely, and people can access the knowledge freely. And by sharing the knowledge and access to the tools, we could get more people into the culture of biking and be more accepting and more welcoming and more encouraging and all that. And so that's the real foundation of how Yellow Bike started. And I feel proud that we've been able to keep that vibe going for a really long time.
You should be proud. That's impressive.
And also relying on volunteers to do a lot of the work. It's important to be welcoming, because if you're going to ask somebody to give you their time and do work for free, you can't just, be a taskmaster and be demanding. You can't be exclusive.
Sounds like co-op radio.
We knew that we weren't inventing something new. We just wanted to take these ideas that were already out there for many, many years and just like put them together around bicycles. Because bicycles are also so somewhat universal. Like once you have your food and your clothes and your shelter, the next thing everybody needs is transportation. And so we wanted to make sure that we wanted to encourage people to use bikes for transportation, because they're good for the environment, they're good for our bodies, they're good for our minds, they're good for our cities. And so creating a space where people could come together and work on bikes, no matter where they're coming from, what kind of politics they have, what kind of background they have, whether they don't know mechanics at all, or whether they have some skills. Like, we just wanted to create a space where people could help make bikes for Austin.
Well, I think you successfully did that. So with those programs, what is the WTF program? Does that still exist, the Women's Trans Femme?
Yeah, so currently we have the programs that we have. Some of them, they focus on providing free bikes, and that will be the Earn a Bike program and the Get a Free Bike program that we already talked about. And then we have types of programs that focus on providing access to bike mechanics, whether people who already know how to fix their bikes, but they don't have access to tools or space, or they just want to be in a cool third space that feels safe and welcoming. And they can do that during our open workshops. And then WTF workshop, it's really a type of open workshop, but just it's a safe space for women trans femme, identifying people run by women trans femme, identifying mechanics, a space that is free from mansplaining. And then we also have open workshops, another type of open workshop that is hosted by a Spanish-speaking mechanic. So we wanted to create another inclusive space that would not, for people who maybe not, whose first language is Spanish, and maybe they're not comfortable using English. And so we didn't want the language to be a barrier from accessing Yellow Bike services. And so during open workshops or types of open workshops like Women Trans Femme or the one with a Spanish speaker on board, People can either come and work on their own bike's problems and receive a bike mechanic assistance. Everything is do-it-yourself kind of approach, not doing it for you, but showing you how to do it. And then during this time, you can also, if you don't have any a project going on your own, but you just want to dedicate your time and volunteer, or volunteer towards the Earn a Bike program, you can do it also during the open workshops. And then the last type of workshop that we have is called volunteer workshop. And the difference between the open and volunteer is basically that you can only use that time towards volunteering, either for your Earn a Bike program, or just you have extra time and you have a community spirit and you can come and volunteer. Usually we would put people to work on kids' bikes. We have kids' bikes giveaways a few times a year, or we would put them to work towards other bike mechanic tasks that we need at that time. Currently, we're very proud to say that we also launched a few new programs. The one that we started a few months ago is in collaboration with the Other Ones Foundation. The story behind that is actually pretty cool because we noticed that we've been receiving ongoing requests from our community partners like the Other Ones Foundation, or Sunrise or Caritas, that this is great that we provide free bikes to people, that they, to their clients, whether it's people exiting homelessness or re-entering, or other people that they serve. And so they receive bikes, but then bikes break or they get a flat, or any other issues. So because we have only one location of Yellow Bike, then for them to have a bicycle that it's not so that's the catch-22 that I mentioned. To get a bike and receive the bike mechanic services, you need a transportation. And if your form of transportation, the only one that you have, a bicycle, is currently not working, then that's a problem. So we were thinking how we can address that. And so we got a grant from Transit Empowerment Fund. And simultaneously, when we were trying to solve this problem, the Other Ones Foundation, one of their residents at their residential community space, Esperanza, reached out to their staff and said that, oh my gosh, that would be so amazing if we can have an on-site bike mechanic program. And so it was simultaneously, so it's great. Some additional magic happened, that we reached out to them, and they were like, oh, this is amazing. You're reaching out to us because we really need this program. And so here we are. The program is actually being implemented, and we are teaching them bike mechanics on site. So the goal is kind of train the trainer so that they can be sustainable, self-sufficient. And so the goal is that the mechanics that we're training from their program, that the goal is that they become self-sufficient and run their own bike mechanic program. Also, what's cool about this new program is that it's happening in their job training center. And so eventually our goal is that it's going to also become like a job training program. Currently, they have a welding job training program, the HVAC, the car mechanic training program, and so hopefully bike mechanic training program will be the fourth in their job training skill center. And in 2027, we will just repeat this model at the Sunrise and hopefully we can replicate it all over Austin.
Wow.
So that's one of the new programs that we currently have.
So satellite locations around the city stemming from bicycle meals to deal with the transportation catch-22 that you were talking about. That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we have another program that we started in collaboration with the Central Library. These are monthly bike mechanic clinic pop-ups that we are doing monthly at the moment, and kind of like assessing the need. And then based on that, we want to like grow it into whatever it needs to be developed based on these are pop-ups, so we provide the services for anyone who needs them in that area. But also the goal of these pop-ups is to kind of assess what's needed, and based on that, create a program that is based on the community needs. And then the third one, maybe you can talk about the third one, or about the GOAT.
There's this organization called Growers of Austin, Texas. It's an acronym that spells GOAT.
Okay.
And they are, they're like a loose collective of landless farmers. And they were looking for a spot to do some work on the soil and to care for the landscape, and also educate people about the needs of, or being able to provide things for people like food, but also a habitat for wildlife, and just to help people learn about the plant community that surrounds us and how important it is. And we have a section of our yard that we intentionally left wild, because when we got our location on Weberville Road, in the front part of it, there's a grove of cedar elms and post oaks that's really beautiful, and we didn't want to cut any trees down to build our building. And we had some real environmentalists in our collective at that time who wanted to not just keep the trees, but kind of rewild that section and let it go, and plant some things to increase the value of that landscape for the wild community. And so we came across these landless farmers who were looking for some opportunity to plant some things and to take care of some landscape. And they've taken over management of that area, and they're planting, pollinator-friendly species, and they're doing maintenance on some of the trees, cutting a little grass, growing some food. And they have a monthly swap meet too, where they also try to meet the other needs of people by collecting stuff that people need, like clothes and household goods. And they have a monthly meetup where people can donate stuff or take stuff. And also they do a plant walk every month, where they walk around and teach people about what plants are there, what their names are, what they do, what
That is so
those
cool.
plants do while they're there.
Are they a nonprofit?
I don't know that they're actually a nonprofit yet. I think they're
not.
just a group of people at this time. I think they might incorporate, but I'm not sure. I haven't spoken with them about that.
That's amazing. I love seeing this synergy between what Yellow Bike is doing and all of these other programs around the city. And that kind of brings me back to what you were saying that Yellow Bike started the intention with, which is mutual aid. And mutual aid differs from charity. And I know we were talking a little bit about that earlier, but I think it's such an important factor for people to pay attention to, is that mutual aid differs from charity, especially in the fact that the community has resources and is allowing those resources or enabling those resources to be available to anyone within the community. How do y'all see your part in that space, and how does the city feel about that? Because it sounds like there's also quite a bit of synergy between the city of Austin, all of the other programs, nonprofit programs, or in this case, not even a nonprofit program, just a group of people who are out there trying to help. Yellow Bike seems to occupy a pretty significant space in that. So how do y'all view the mutual aid and the work with the city together? Where does that kind of fit?
I would say that we're proud to be Austinites, because our city government is responsive to these kind of needs. There's a lot of community bike shops around the country that struggle to pay rent. And one of the big advantages that Yellow Bike has, and I would say the chief thing that allows us to succeed, is that the city of Austin has provided a space for us to do our work in.
That's incredible. When did that happen?
It happened early on. Back in the mid-90s, Austin created its first bicycle program in the Public Works Department. and that the first director of that program applied for a grant to get 10 bikes for city employees to ride around, which is a really cool program. Encouraging city employees to use bikes for transportation was, I don't know if it was radical, but it was new at the time and not super popular. Some people thought that was the whole bike program was a waste of city effort, but they people at Yellow Bikes saw that they were applying for this grant. It was $30,000 to get 10 bikes, and we thought,
Wow.
that's not a good ratio. We could provide a lot more bikes to the city of Austin for that amount of money. And so one of our volunteers went into the public works department and just met with them and said, "Hey, we're doing this thing already. What if we applied for that grant instead?" And the public works official that our volunteer spoke to, interviewed our volunteer and asked him all of these questions about what we were doing, and determined that, wow, we didn't know you guys were around, and why don't we just work with you instead of applying for this grant? And so, because if we had applied for that grant, it would have been like 90% of the money would have gone to rent. And so the public works official at that time said, why don't you guys move into this warehouse space that's relatively unused and do your thing there, and you can create a city bike program for us. And so that was the initial connection to the city government and Yellow Bike. And it's evolved a lot since then.
And so how long have y'all had that property, and how long do you have it for?
Well, at that time, it was the year 2000. We were a really young organization, and it was a huge boon for us. And it wasn't a formal relationship with the city. We didn't have a lease agreement or any sort of memorandum of understanding or anything like that. It was just like a handshake kind of a deal. And they shuffled us around from a couple different warehouses over the years. And in 2008, just when the financial crisis was hitting, the real estate bust or whatever, the Great Recession was beginning. That's what it's called. The city was developing the Mueller location, and they told us that the warehouse we were in was going to be demolished and that we were going to be on our own after that. And we were terrified of those prospects because at that point, we were still all volunteers, and we had some money in the bank, but we certainly didn't have the ability to pay rent on a space big enough to hold all of the stuff that we had accumulated over the previous decade. We filled up a 3,000 square foot warehouse
I don't doubt
pretty
it,
well.
yeah.
And so we were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, are we going to fold? Are we going to give up? And so I met with this guy named Mike Blizzard, who is a political activist, like a campaign manager kind of guy. And he gave me the advice that we should go talk to the city again and convince them that what we were doing has value and that it's better for them to find a space for us to keep working than to lose us. And so we went to the Urban Transportation Commission and made this pitch because the previous year the city had signed this climate protection plan, which called for all these things that the city could do to mitigate climate change. And what we were doing by promoting bicycling and making bikes available to the people of Austin was not something the city was doing. And so we told them, if you were to create a program that's doing what we do already, you'd need the space to do it, and it would cost a lot of money. But we're already doing it, so how about give us a space? And so this Urban Transportation Commission made a recommendation to City Council, and City Council decided to give us another space. But unfortunately, that wasn't the end of the story.
Well, fortunately for us, because we're definitely interested.
So we were really excited at that time. We got appointed a real estate person from the city. Her name was Nani, and she had a lot of fun with us. We drove around in a city van to all these different locations, and we toured all these warehouses. And each one was like less than ideal, but each time we were shown one, we said, yes, well, that would work for us. And none of them worked out, whether because the city department that was supposed to vacate changed their mind, or the city just didn't, that they kept shuffling things around and they didn't have a space for us to move into. And so the warehouse that we were in got Well, it didn't get demolished actually for quite some time, but we moved out, and we moved our shop into a 20-foot shipping container
That's a
and
big shift.
parked it at the corner of 12th and Salina in the parking lot of this um, nonprofit thrift store called Treasure City Thrift, and their whole motto is solidarity, not charity, and so
So
they
back to the
invited us.
mutual aid.
Exactly, yeah. They invited us to share their space, and it was a really trying time for the organization because moving from a 3,000 square foot warehouse into a 20-foot shipping container in a
Ugh.
parking lot was really hard. We lost a lot of volunteers at the time, but I was really keen on making sure that we didn't just stop operations. And so it was definitely a setback, but we kept our shop open, so to speak, for that time period. And then things just kept dragging with the city. And so we asked one of our friends who worked for the Chronicle to write an article about us. And the city manager saw that article and got mad and went back to the real estate department or the public works department and said, I told you guys to find a space for this nonprofit. I don't want to hear about this in the news.
That's beautiful.
And so at that time, I had a real exciting moment in my life. I got called up to the 13th floor of the Public Works Department, and they laid out these plats of these different locations
Ooh.
on this desk, and they were like, "Just pick one. We
Oh
want
my
to be done with
Wow.
this."
Just get it over with.
Yeah, they
Go
didn't say we want
Chronicle.
to be done with this process, but it was definitely the vibe I was getting. They were like, "We got word from the city manager that we have to take care of this, and here are your 3 options. Pick one."
Wow.
And so I looked at them. Luckily, I've been in Austin for long enough to know I knew where each location was, and I had actually seen all 3 of them with my eyes. And one of them was at the corner of Flores and Waller, which is right across the street from the Festival Beach Food Forest now. And it was essentially downtown. It was the smallest of the spaces, but it was like a half an acre or something like that. And so I thought, man, if we can be downtown, this is going to be a real game changer for us. And so I picked that one. And they said, okay, great. But then we discovered in the process of trying to finalize the lease agreement with the city that the lot was totally unbuildable because power lines go over it, and you can't build buildings under power lines. And so one of our volunteers contacted Austin Energy to ask them how much it would cost to move the power lines.
Gosh.
Y'all are so diligent.
And it got across somebody's desk in Austin Energy, and I can't remember her name, but she was like, who the hell is asking us to move the power lines that give electricity to downtown?
And why did
Like,
they offer that location in the first place?
yeah, that's the question we didn't ask. But luckily, this is a kind of real serendipitous moment. That person at Austin Energy who got the request to ask how much it would cost to move the power lines was like, what is this question even coming across my desk? Who are these people? And she found out it was Yellow Bike, and she said, oh, I know Yellow Bike. I love those guys. And so all of a sudden, instead of just public works properties that were becoming available, all of a sudden Austin Energy properties became
wow.
available. And so one thing I forgot to mention was that we actually previously had given up on asking the city for a warehouse because there wasn't one available, and we had switched our ask to, if you can just give us a piece of land, we can figure it out from there. And so the 3 pieces of property that I was choosing from at the city were all just raw land. And so Austin Energy has had some empty land, and that's how we got the space that we're at now on Weberville Road. If you look outside the south fence, there's a huge open space there, and there's also some power lines there. But that's a City of Austin or Austin Energy laydown yard, which is a space that they use for storing those huge poles that are like 400 feet long. And also if there's like a giant storm and they have to pile up a huge amount of brush and trees, it's like a property that they maintain for that. So they carved off 3/4 of an acre of that and leased it to Yellow Bike. So because of the mix-up and the potential problems with the previous site, it opened up the possibility of us getting the one we have now. So
It's amazing. So be diligent, be vocal, and get what you unexpected or what's unexpected. That's amazing. And
yeah,
so that the space has evolved. I've been going there for probably close to a decade ago was the first time I stepped foot in the door, and it has continuously evolved, and it's an incredible space at this point. Y'all have so many different bike stations and workstations. There's an upstairs section. There are bike racks. There's, tons and tons of bikes that are just kind of in waiting outside, but that location seems sustainable for the foreseeable future. How do y'all see the next 5-10 years going, or the next 30 years, I should say, with Yellow Bike?
It is a great space, and we do feel so lucky to have it. Like I was saying, like not having to pay rent on a space like that is really what makes it possible for us to do all the stuff that we do. And because Yellow Bike paid for the building to be constructed, they gave us a 50-year lease with the renewal options of another 49 years.
And then we're bouncing back and forth from warehouse to warehouse or shipping container. Y'all are stable for the foreseeable future. That's
And
wonderful.
that stability was really, really groundbreaking. I helped move all the stuff at Yellow Bike each of the times before. And when we were moving into that building, the one thing I kept telling everybody was like, I'm so excited. This is the last time I'm going to have to carry this pile of brakes from here to there. And so, yeah, we have a 50-year lease that started in 2010. So
you're good till 2060. Wow. That's such an amazing story, and beautiful programs that are sustainable over time have such a synergy within the community that there are lots of people fighting to keep them alive and volunteering their time and effort. You can see a city manager and somebody at Austin Energy and you all in there fighting to make sure that this is still alive and that it provides what it does to the community. It's just a beautiful story to see, and I've seen that in talking with nonprofits, is that the sustainable ones have that formula to them, that they're working with everybody, they're for everybody, and therefore they stay around for a long time. They're not siloed or a one-directional type of machine.
I think that's the exact key to our success. It's a lot of nonprofits start for personal reasons for somebody, and those nonprofits are beautiful and they do serve a purpose, but sometimes they don't last beyond the vision of the founder because it's such a specific need that that person sees.
It's hard work,
and it's a lot of work. But I feel lucky that the focus that we have is really a basic need that everybody in the community can understand, even if they don't actually need a bike themselves at the moment. And so that universality of it is one of the things that I think really helps to keep us going, because the flow of volunteers in and out is really one of the sources of our continuity. And a lot of people come in to get a bike and we don't see them again. But there's always more and more people, and there's always more people coming to Austin.
Because you may have solved their transportation problem, so they're probably off to the next hierarchy of needs and taking care of that. So that's wonderful. Do y'all have any? Well, I was still asking about the future. What does the future look like? It sounds like it's stable. Do y'all have any new programs? Or you said it sounds like 3 new programs came in. Are you maxed out with what you're doing? How's funding? Like what is the situation and the status of Yellow Bike at this point?
I would say currently the feeling is that we're maxed out, but I think that it really is just
that good or bad?
Another way of saying there's opportunities for continued growth. Like we're kind of maxed out with what we can do right now with the people that we have. But for the next 5 to 10 years, I would say our biggest goals are to really, one of the things I want to do is expand and refine our volunteer program. Like we rely on volunteers to do a lot of the work, but we don't really have a solid formalized training program for people to learn bike mechanics. It's more of just a free-for-all kind of osmosis kind of thing.
Who shows up?
You can come in and you can work on bikes and you can ask questions and you can learn, which is really great. It's a wonderful environment. A lot of people thrive there. But I want to work on creating a systematic way where we can kind of certify people and say, like, you've done these specific tasks and you've had this specific amount of instruction, and you can say, like, I've gone through this kind of course and I'm the Yellow Bike certified mechanic. That's one of the things that I want to do over the next few years, because I think that it will increase the effectiveness of our volunteers, and I think it also will increase the number, because I think people will like that. Some people really love
approval from y'all with your position in the community is significant, and there's some y'all have some phenomenal mechanics over there. I know we were just working with Challo with the Austin Bicycle Meals project and transitioning to an e-bike. And I mean, the guy is, did he work for New Horizons? Like one of the, he was like a,
He was a machinist for, actually, I think his title was general specialist
yeah,
or specialized generalist or something like that for Blue Origin.
Blue Origin, that's right.
Which
Yeah.
is Jeff Bezos' space.
Which that level
company.
of skill in a place like that is transferable, right? That knowledge kind of moves throughout the community of people being around mechanics that are really knowledgeable and experienced in those spaces. So when you have people like that within the organization, you've been there 29 years, right? I'm sure you're no slouch at the mechanic bench, but
there's definitely some mechanical things on bikes that I don't know about
sure.
because they keep changing. But
yeah,
there's a deep bench of mechanical knowledge that I think we could more effectively bring it forth and give that knowledge to other people. We do have classes that we teach every month, and that's another thing that I want to ramp up and expand. And there's this school in Oregon called United Bicycle Institute, and I think they're one of the only. I shouldn't say something I'm not sure about, but I think they're one of the only organizations in the country that actually gives bike mechanic certifications. And we're sending one of our mechanics, Nikki Meyer, there this summer to do the full-scale course so that she can get that formal training. She's already a great mechanic, but we want to give her this formal training so she can come back and help to create this.
Will she be able to certify people once she's certified, or how does that work?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, I'm not sure.
Well,
because it's one of the things about certification programs is a lot of times they're just invented. You know, like the knowledge, somebody formalizes the knowledge and they become the expert, and then other people go to that person and then can say that they've studied with the expert and therefore they have the expertise. But they're in the world of bicycle mechanics, it's not as formalized. There's people respect the schools that are out there, but it's not like saying I have a degree.
Do we want it to be formalized? Do we want it to be a governmental certification with TDLR or something?
Right, like, oh, don't touch my bike if you're not certified. I agree that it has its own pitfalls, because if you create this certification, then it immediately creates a class of people who are uncertified, which we don't really want. But at the same time, I feel like some kind of formalization of training would be great, because I've had a lot of feedback from people who are like, I came here to learn bike mechanics, but I'm not really getting taught well. I'm not really getting taught the way I want to learn. Like it can be kind of a chaotic environment at the open shops, where you bring your bike in, or you're volunteering and you get a bike in your stand, and it's just up to you to ask the questions. And some people don't have the level of initiative that it takes to thrive in that environment. And so we're going to keep the open shop environment going for sure, because that's our oldest and probably funnest program. But I want to give people an option to also go through another more like classroom style experience.
And with those classes, like I just sat through an e-bike class. How are e-bikes changing things with Yellow Bike, or is it pretty similar? And what is the deal with the e-bike classes?
Well, we have one mechanic who's really good at electric bikes, and he teaches a monthly class called e-bike troubleshooting. And that's a 3-hour class that costs $60, and anybody with an e-bike can come in and get help. The reason we set that up is because lots of people were coming to us with e-bike problems, but most of our volunteers and most of our staff don't know how to solve them. Like the bicycle mechanic problems are solvable, but the electrics are something that a lot of us don't know about. And so rather than just keep on messing up people's bikes or turning people away, we are utilizing our one mechanic who knows how to do that stuff with a specific monthly class that people can sign up for. And at first we had a big debate about e-bikes, actually, whether or not we were going to even accept them, because the foundations of Yellow Bike are about human-powered transportation. The environmental aspect of what we do is really important to a lot of the founders, and the human-powered aspect of it is one of the key parts that we want to promote. Like getting more lithium-ion batteries into the world is not something that Yellow Bike started as with a goal of that. We want to get the environment to be cleaner. We want the air to be cleaner. We want people to be healthier. Pedaling a bike is really good for people. And so electric bikes they weren't initially part of our mission or part of our idea. In fact, they didn't exist when Yellow Bike started.
Is anybody
But
working on solar-powered bikes?
Exactly. You'd have to have a really big bike, I think, to have a solar-powered one. But the reality is that e-bikes are out there and they're very popular. And we get them donated, and so we have to figure out what to do with them. And a lot of people do want them, and so we're doing our best to handle the flow of bikes through, and we're refurbishing some that come in good shape, and we're recycling the batteries that a lot of e-bikes get donated to us because the batteries are dead, and recycling batteries is a real challenge for everybody. So we're approaching it. That's what I can say. We're doing our best to figure out what to do with the e-bikes. And because they're not going away and because they are popular, we are gonna try to expand the knowledge at least on how to work on them.
Well, it was eye-opening to sit through that transformation of the bike that was donated, or the refurbishment of the bike that was donated to y'all for Austin. Well, that Austin Bicycle Meals ended up picking up, and then watching through the class the transformation of a standard bike into an e-bike. It's pretty neat to see that. It does require some knowledge and some experience in how to do that, but the fact that y'all are again putting that information out into the community to make it more accessible is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, we do. I feel like I came off as a little bit negative about e-bikes. I do want to say that they do have a place. I mean, all transportation has an environmental cost, but the range that an e-bike has versus a regular bike can be a really big deal for some people, and it could potentially mean that you don't need to get a car. And so to that degree, we would like to promote e-bike use.
Yeah, it seems like it fits in well with the model of dealing with the hierarchy of needs and making sure that people have the ability to actually show up at a job if they get it, which is key for someone starting out or having to start over. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and adding to our goal or fulfilling the dream of Yellow Bike, playing a role of the education center that can, provide certification and help you get a job as a bike mechanic. Currently, on the bike mechanic job market, the e-bike knowledge skills are required, like all major bicycle shop like Specialized or Trek. They require all bike mechanics to...
It makes sense. They're popular.
Yeah, to have e-bike knowledge as well. So if you want to provide job skills in bike mechanics,
like at this point.
We have to.
I mean, y'all have not stopped evolving over 30 years, and I highly doubt that's going to stop. How can the community help support Yellow Bike at this point? You kind of laid out the programs and anything, but is there anything else that y'all need that the community can participate in?
Well, that's kind of pretty simple, like any other nonprofit. Every year we process around 3,000 bikes. That takes a lot of manpower to do that. And so as much as we appreciate help of our volunteers, the training process to become a good bike mechanic is not short and simple. So the more bike mechanics we can hire, the more bikes we can transition into the bikes that people can get from us, whether through our free programs or buying a bicycle that is way cheaper than other bike shops. And to do that, we need to hire more staff. So definitely, if you're in a position to donate money, that would be definitely something we could benefit from. And yeah, we keep receiving bicycles and bike parts. But definitely having more financial support would help us to create more bike mechanic jobs as well, which is like, I think, a great benefit of Yellow Bike, of the work that we do.
It's interesting to hear because examining that from the outside, you see a lot of volunteers in there. I know y'all sell some of the bikes to help finance operations and stuff like that, but it's almost kind of a chicken before the egg. Like, do you have enough money to pay someone that is actually able to fix these things up so you can sell them so you can continue to grow? So that's an
Yeah.
interesting dynamic there.
Yeah,
But
and even
people are
like-
always the challenge, aren't they?
Even like going back to the new programs that we mentioned, these are taught by our staff mechanics. So again, when we create a new program, that takes away the time of our
Interesting.
mechanics that they don't spend on building bikes. So now with starting the new programs, this is like our ongoing conversation, is that we're happy to start the new programs. We need more manpower and more resources.
I agree that y'all are serving a significant portion of the community and a much needed space to make sure that Austin continues to be an amazing place to live and a place that we all want to call home. So we really appreciate what you're doing. Are there any special events coming up that people should know about other than the classes that we've discussed? And where can people find out more about Yellow Bike?
There's a couple of things coming up. On August 1st, we have 2 kids bike giveaways, one in North Austin and one in South Austin. And we could use some volunteers to help put some helmets on some kids and get them on their bikes and smiling. So that's something that we do typically. So if you're looking for volunteer opportunities, those are around pretty consistently throughout the year. And we also are currently looking for new board members as well, which would be a great way to volunteer if you're not particularly interested in learning bike mechanics, but you have some other skill sets that might help us. And I don't know that we have any events coming up. Bike month just ended, so we're taking a breath right now.
So if somebody wants to volunteer, do they go to your website? Is there something there that gives more information about that?
Yeah, probably the website has a lot of information on it, but if you want to get involved, look at the calendar section and that'll tell you what's going on day to day. Or just show up and say, "Hey, I'm here to help." And we'll find something for you to do.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate y'all coming in. One last thing before we call it is I was definitely curious to see what your favorite story of your time at Yellow Bike is from each of you. Do you have a favorite story of over the years of an experience or maybe a bike? I don't know if there's been a love affair with a bike that's
Or
come
a
through.
connection you've made with someone?
Why don't you start? Because I have like 20 of them.
Yeah, sure. I think the one that I remember the most is that was my first kids bike giveaway that I organized for Yellow Bike, and that was still as a volunteer. That was some kids bike giveaway that Pete asked me to organize before I was hired, and so I remember that we loaded huge amount of kids bikes on Yellow Bike truck, and when we delivered them at one of our partners' locations, there was this little girl. She was like on the second floor, and when she saw us pulling to the parking, she screamed with all her young lungs, "Bicycles, bicycles, bicycles!" And she just ran down the stairs and to greet us. By the time we parked, she was already there, super excited. She was maybe like 6 or 7 years old. She was dressed all in pink. And I remember her bicycle, that happened also to be pink. That was like on the very, very last corner of the bed. So it was the last bicycle that we would picked up from all the bicycles that we had for kids. And so by the time we got to her bike, like about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes passed because we had so much bikes. And so every time we picked up a bike to unload it, she was like, "Is this bike mine?" And the bike was like obviously like for like a 14-year-old kid. And I was like, no, dear, that's not your bike. And she was like, oh. And and every time we picked up a bike, she asked the same question, is this one mine? And I was like, no. And so it happened that her bicycle was like a very, very last one.
Oh.
And every time we picked up, and there was like 50 bikes. So she asked this question 50 times.
Learned a lot of patience that day.
Yeah, every time we picked up a bike, and I was like really feeling for her, and my heart was just melting, because she was just like very sad that her bike was not there. Maybe she was afraid that her bike wasn't there. But finally, when she asked again that question, when I left her pink bicycle, and she was like, is this bike mine? And I was like, yeah, that's your bicycle. And she started jumping, and she was just so happy. And the bike ended up being a little bit too big for her. And so when she was put on the bike, I think there was like one of the people, the coordinators, or one of the guardians who was helping her to lead the bike for her. And so I remember her face. It was like a kind of a mix of happiness and fear. And so, yeah, so that's like the memory that I think is going to stay with me forever.
I would imagine that helps you keep showing up every day and doing what y'all do.
Yeah, our work is very rewarding. That's one of the best things that I love about working at Yellow Bike.
Imagine so. And Pete?
I don't really know where
pick
to
out of your
begin.
20.
I was kind of joking about that. I mean, there's just so many memories and so many stories. Like, I don't know if I can top Marceli's.
All right, that's there.
But I would say that for me, my favorite thing is just that I found a purpose for my life in volunteering at Yellow Bike and now in working there. And not everybody gets that, you know? Like when I first got involved, I thought we can really change the world. We can change the city by getting people on bikes. And now, 29 years later, I realized that was a youthful idealism kind of goal. But in the meantime, it definitely has changed my life for the better. And I don't want to sound selfish, but I think that that's my favorite thing about it. It's like I can wake up every day knowing that I have something to do that's meaningful, that's going to help people. And I constantly feel grateful.
That's
that
important.
That's my life.
No small thing.
Yeah, it's important to a well-lived life, and I would disagree with you. It has changed lives, and it has changed the city. I mean, you can see it as a web kind of reaching out into the city and welcoming someone like Marcelina to our city as a kind of safety net to be able to help people get on their feet when they get there. I would say it definitely has changed it. And I mean, I know people that ride with Austin Bicycle Meals and work with Yellow Bike, and you can see how it has changed their lives, and it becomes a stable, safe place to go to, a place to learn skills, a place to create community, and it's become a old growth tree within the city. And I think that's those are things that we need, and we need to make sure that we're caring for those as a community. So we really appreciate everything that y'all do, and thanks for coming out today.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for having
thank
us.
you.
This
Thank
was
you.
a fun time.